Is PDA a big thing in Korea?
Definitely! Oh my god, bro. One time I was waiting in line to get coffee and you just see a random couple fucking making out.
What's one dating rule you must know in Korea?
It's not that common to have a friend from the opposite gender.
No first contact.
So maybe like always update them.
The 3-date rule.
I'd say it's the 3 dates rule.
How do Koreans confess their feelings?
조심스럽게.
They're very like shy. They're like, oh, like, you know, I think we've had a good date today, you know, like, you know, do you think you'd be like my girlfriend?
These are things you must know before dating Koreans. What's one dating rule you must know in Korea?
I would say when you are in a relationship, it's not that common to have a friend from the opposite gender. For example, I've also heard that if you are eating together in a group of people and there was one couple, if the guy that is in a relationship helps another girl to take her food, it's kind of cheating or it's not really that well seen. So they're really jealous here, I would say.
If you want to be date with the Korean, like not just looking for fun, like something serious, I think you should communicate with them with their language.
I'd say it's the 3 dates rule, where after 3 days you have to ask her out for a relationship. I think that's the one. Like it's pretty fast. If after the 3 dates you don't ask her out, they don't think you are that interested in her.
I think it's important to know about the anniversaries. It's like 100-day anniversary, 200-day, 300-day, 1 year. Kind of from what I know, like I think mostly younger Koreans do it, like high schoolers or maybe college students. But at the same time, like it just depends on the Korean girl, right? So if your girlfriend does like those anniversaries, it's good to know. And I know like back in America where I'm from, or like Western countries, we don't have like all those anniversaries necessarily, and it is kind of like a big deal here.
From my experience and the guys that I dated, if you're a really strong, independent woman or someone who is super goofy or has like a dark sense of humor, matching really like traditional Korean men will be difficult.
No first contact. Like I'm from France, and the first time I dated someone in Korea, I went like to like do the like not the French kiss, but like the kiss on the cheeks, and the girl was like. At the first time, I was what did I do wrong? I'm French, we just do that. And she was like, okay, no, not here. So yeah, don't do that.
I think that especially as Westerners, something that's important for us to know is that Koreans are less direct in the way that they communicate things. There's like dunchi culture in Korea, and it's very much about reading the room. They have their own set of rules. And so I have found personally that when you are too straight to the point, it can actually cause communication issues, and it's about learning a little bit more about that dunchi culture to date comfortably.
Be open-minded, obviously. That's like the best way I could describe it. Because it's very like, you have to be open to new things, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I don't know, I heard that like Korean boys are very clingy and like they want to know like everything about the girlfriend. They are very attached to them. So maybe like always update them.
One thing I learned the hard way was that the 3-date rule. I'm coming from the US where mostly people take a lot of time to get to know each other. When I first went on dates here, the first date I went on like 3 dates with the person. And then afterwards, it was kind of like just ghosted, just like I didn't really hear much from them. And I reached out, I was like, hey, what happened? Like, I kind of am curious to see what was going on. They're like, oh, I just didn't really feel a connection. I was like, okay, maybe that's just that individual person. But then it happened to me again and again, and I was really surprised by that.
What's one thing foreigners often misunderstand about dating Koreans?
I think people put too much meaning into dating with the Korean. Like, Koreans are also human, like they are not from another planet. And also from my experience, men are men everywhere you go in the world. So they thought like they're gonna be in a love story like they saw from the like dramas and movies. I think like Korean dramas and movies play a big role on that, but the real life is totally different from that.
People underestimate the struggles that can come with international dating and just like language barriers, cultural differences, things of that nature. If you are a foreigner and you come to Korea and you do want to date Koreans, it takes a lot of effort.
So there's a thing about dating in Korea where foreigners often feel that my relationships with Koreans are not serious or not progressing purely because I'm a foreigner. And I do think that there's some truth to that, but I think that one misunderstanding that people have is often the reason that your relationship doesn't progress has nothing to do with you. It actually has to do with like very strict marriage standards in Korea. So when you marry,
The more expensive part is not even your wedding, it's your newlywed house. And so I know a lot of Koreans, even dating Koreans, that do not progress their relationships or get married because they literally don't have enough money or earn enough money yet to do so. So it's not always you. You're not always the problem.
I think it would be the importance of dating. You can see around in the street a lot of people are holding hands or like really into relationships. And there are a lot of special days throughout the year where you usually celebrate your relationship. And if you don't do them, that's going to be a problem, of course. And like if you are just single at that time, you might see a lot of Koreans, girls and boys, trying to date more so that they can be in a relationship for those days, like Pepero Day or White Day. And so for a foreigner, that might be more weird. Even though Valentine's Day, you're usually like some might be a bit depressed back in Belgium, but it's not that big of a deal. But here, it's a big of a deal.
I think the Hongdae guy perspective is like the first thing that people think about mostly. And it's not all of them, you know. Most of them are actually really respectful and they really care and they're very, I guess they move a little bit fast, I would say. Like on the first date, most of them are like, hey, do you want to be my girlfriend? I'm like, whoa, that's kind of fast, you know. But that's usually how Koreans move. They move pretty fast in dating, you know.
I feel like a lot of foreigners might not really understand the cultural aspect of things. Sometimes people might come to Korea and try to have their own culture and just be like, okay, why isn't this person directly communicating with me? Like, for example, as an American, I really appreciate direct communication. But if I'm dating or friends with someone from a different culture, I would try to understand where they're coming from in terms of how they communicate things and try to sort of meet them in the middle. So I feel like that's something to really take into consideration when you're going out here, meeting people, making friends or dating.
There is a lot of like Korea boo in French. I met some people here that came to meet Koreans people. Like I've been friends with a girl that was here for 3 months. She was like, oh yeah, I will date my Korean oppa and everything. I was like, I don't think you should, especially in Hongdae. Something that people might misunderstand is that Koreans won't be like amazed by you if you're like European or something. I mean, at least in Seoul, there is just so many Europeans, like Africans, like anywhere in the world, like that's really international city, and many people actually think that they will have something special. You're not special. Like you won't. You will be like everybody. Nobody will take you in pictures. Like it's not gonna happen.
My friends, especially when I was in college, international students would say like it's so hard to find a genuine guy in Korea. They watch a lot of K-drama and they're really into Korean culture, but in reality they say they're really different. But I feel like it's the problem that they're looking for their men at clubs or bars. It really depends on where you're looking for those people. And just based on experience that I have, Koreans become completely different. Not all of them, but most of them become really different after drinking or when they go to karaoke. They become more confident and more outgoing.
So here in Korea, they're always on their phone, so they text a lot. And for foreigners, it can be clingy. They might think, why are you checking up on me the whole time? For me, it's okay. If I like someone, you don't have to text me every day. I understand if you're busy, but in Korea, if you don't text each other for like 1 or 2 days, it's kind of I want to break up with you.
Is PDA a big no in Korea?
I think kissing is a no, or like heavy makeouts are no's, because I never see couples making out or like being extremely attached to another. I see like holding hands and stuff, but like not more than that. So I think it is a no.
Definitely. Oh my God, bro. You go on the subway station, everybody's always holding hands. I literally one time I was waiting in line to get coffee and you just see a random couple fucking making out. I'm like, fuck, oh my God. I mean, okay, shit, you do your thing, you know what I mean? Like, the PDA is a really big thing in Korea, I feel like, yeah.
Well, a lot of people think like Korea is like this very conservative country that doesn't have much PDA.
No, I disagree. There's way too much PDA in Korea. Like, I feel like everybody's like basically always kissing, hugging hands, or making out somewhere on the street or on the subway.
So like it's pretty similar to back home.
No, not really. I feel like I don't see that much back home in America, I feel like. I don't know. That's just me though, I feel like, yeah.
If you've been to Korea, Seoul in particular, I think everyone's seen like couples everywhere. Right, hugging and kissing. So as far as PDA, like you see couples touching and it's very like out there in Seoul, I would say, but you don't see like any, I guess I would say like deep PDA, right? Like making out on the street or something, right? I don't think that's like necessarily particular to Korea, right? Like I don't think anyone really wants to see that like while they're walking to school or walking to work, right? So you don't see that, but you do see couples like touching and being touchy like everywhere, basically.
For me, it's a bigger of a no, but I've seen a lot of Koreans just doing it, like holding hands, kissing, hugging. I think now they are really open about it. Maybe a few years ago, that was less something that was acceptable, but now it's like getting more of, we want to display our relationship, so we hold hands, we kiss, we hug, and so on, and we show affection in the middle of the street.
Yeah, I think so, because when you're dating, you guys can hug, but I think the kissing or like too much like skinship, like intimacy, it's not like welcomed in here. They have taboos for that, but I think it's not something bad. I think it's necessarily for society, in my opinion.
I think PDA is a big no in Korea. It's not that you don't see it. Like you do see, I think particularly like younger couples, you know, kind of university age will sometimes do a little bit of PDA, but I think that it just culturally it's not a thing and it's best to avoid it, in my opinion.
PDA, I would say, depends on the extent. So I've seen here a lot of couples, like they hold hands and stuff and they're just like all together and it makes me feel really single, but that might be a personal problem. But yeah, in the States, I don't really see much of people like holding hands and messing about unless maybe you go to like certain popular areas where sometimes it can be a little explicit. But here in Korea, I feel like it's mostly just pretty vanilla, just holding hands and just, you know, being with each other, especially when you go on the escalators and people just like hug each other and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, me and who?
No, it's not a no-no because actually like a lot of, as you might see like around here, there is a lot of like people holding hands. They don't kiss though. Most of the time they don't kiss in the street. The kiss is really like at home or something. Most of them just want to kiss in the street or in pictures or something. They won't do that. Holding hand is totally okay. Hugging as well, as long as you're at least dating for a while or a couple.
In Korea, you will recognize couples because they have matching outfits, but kissing or doing even more in public is not that well seen, especially in the older generation. They would say it's disrespectful, so they mostly don't.
Light PDAs are actually really common in Korea. I feel like most couples in Korea, they were usually holding hands, kissing each other quickly, hugging, even like patting each other's head. That's really common. Egyu, like being cute or like being treated as a baby is such a thing in Korea. I feel like it's a really cultural thing here. So that's really common. But for like maybe heavy PDA, like something more affectionate, makeup sessions and something like that is not really common. I think that's a big no-no still here. I wish it was more common.
How do Koreans confess their feelings?
In a Korean term, they are confessing their feelings 조심스럽게. I think it's just because the way they raise, they don't want to hurt the person in front of them. So if they want to confess their feelings, they are trying to be like careful. So I think this is not bad for like a healthy communication, but it's bad because sometimes they are like, if there is a problem, instead of like fixing it, they thinking like if they talk about their feelings, they think like it can be rude. So instead fixing it, they are just running away or acting like nothing happened. But I think it's just their culture.
They're very like shy. They're like, oh, like, you know, I think we've had a good date today, you know, like, you know, do you think you'd be like my girlfriend, you know what I mean? Like they do it very like shy, you know. I don't know how to explain it. They're very shy. They're not very open, if that makes sense. Like they don't tell you straight up. Like they try to be like sweet and kind about it, you know what I mean?
You like that?
Yeah, I like the introvert kind of type. Yeah, I guess so.
Generally, if you meet someone and you have like a common interest in each other, maybe you'll go on like 3 to 5 dates and then the Korean girl will kind of expect you to confess, right? And it can be as simple as just like, oh, 우리 사귀래, right? Like, can we just start a relationship, basically? Like, we like each other, should we start a relationship? So I did have an experience with a Korean girl that I was talking to. Maybe we had like 3 to 5 dates around that time, and I didn't confess, right? And she actually told me later, like, she expected me to.
It's really straightforward, actually. Again, in France, we usually like date. At some point, there is a kiss, and then we just know that we're like together, but we don't say. Here, they're gonna wait for you to say it.
Well, I suppose it depends. For me, my experience has been that maybe because I'm a foreigner, I feel like they have kind of built up the courage and been more direct with me, just saying like, hey, I kind of like you. But I also think you kind of know from that, like, 오늘 일일이야, like from today we're dating, and that usually happens on like somewhere between the first to third date. You kind of figured, oh, this is not a friend coffee.
Is the dating culture in Korea, more modern or traditional?
I think it's really modern now. The people around my age are more modern. I mean, it depends on which person you're going to talk to. So if she's Christian, it's mostly going to be conservative, maybe. Even though they do a lot of like sogeting outside of church, that's going to be more like open and modern.
I think nowadays it's modern, especially, you know, like from all the social media and stuff. They go on cute dates. But I think some couples are more traditional since, as I said, they probably like don't do much in public. Like holding hands is like the maximum they do, which is kind of traditional. But I think they're more modern nowadays.
I would say maybe mixed of both. I feel like among Koreans who were raised and born here, it's still really traditional, I would say. For example, it's really interesting that people get married through sogeting. Like parents introduce their kids and they get married within a year or two. That's really interesting to me, and I feel like it's really traditional.
So I would say it is traditional in the sense of, when I think of traditional dating culture in Korea, I think of like sogeting, meeting people in that way, or meeting people just through friends. Kind of see that as more traditional, and people do that a lot. However, I would say I think people don't talk about it and they try to act like they don't, but a lot of Korean girls are on apps, dating apps, and I've met a lot of people who have met their girlfriends on dating apps too. So to me, that's kind of like a more modern way to date, I would say, and so I don't think it's really different than anywhere else, to be honest.
Well, hope you enjoyed the video. If you love to see more like this in the future, be sure to be subscribed. And a lot of you haven't turned on your notification, so if you haven't turned on your notification, be sure to turn on your notification. And also, if you're planning a trip to South Korea, I have my guidebook, which is going to be linked down in the description, where you can travel to Seoul like a local.